Good morning. My name is Michael Staffenski. I'm the sous chef at Bates College, and this is my coworker and friend, Daisy Taylor, who's the head baker at Bates College. And we've been asked to do a cooking class, one of three, for you to enjoy. A couple of things that we're going to do today is we're going to do a scallion chicken with rice, and Daisy's going to do a Italian almond cookie, and she's doing what kind of bark are you doing?
Toffee Bark.
A Toffee Bark. So we're going to get right into it. I'm going to take off my mask while Daisy steps away here because of social distancing, and I'll show you what to do. The beautiful things without a mask is my glasses don't fog up. So, scallion chicken and rice. The first thing you want to consider is what's going to cook the longest, and that is your rice. It's going to take about a half an hour. So I'm going to get my rice started. Typically, for any kind of rice, there are two ways of cooking it. You can cook it in the oven in a pan, or you can cook it on the stovetop in a small saucepan. For these purposes here, we're going to do it in a small saucepan. And most rices are proportioned 1 part rice to 2 parts liquid. Today we're going to use water because we're going to want a nice plain rice so that you get the flavor from the scallion chicken on the rice. But you can add chicken stock, vegetable stock, beef stock. You can add carrots, celery, and onion to make a pilaf. You can add beans, chili powder, and all sorts of other flavorings to your rice. Rice is an empty palate, and it's a beautiful dish and accompaniment to anything. Also, rice reheats really well. So if you have a little bit of leftover rice, you pop it in the refrigerator, and the next day, a touch of water, a teaspoon of water to a bowl, and in the microwave, reheats very nicely. So it's a really good to-go dish if you want to take something into work with you. So let's start up our burner here. There we go. And to start off with, I'm going to have this burner on high. My pan on top of this. And this rice, some people like to wash their rice. I don't really bother. Washing the rice will take out some of the starch, so sometimes it's a little bit less sticky, but a sticky rice is nice for this dish. So I have 1 part. This is 8 ounces of rice, and I'm going to do 2 parts of water. So 16 ounces of water right in, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. Once it's at a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer, and I'm going to cover it, and it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes to finish. In the meantime, while that's starting, I'm going to start on my chicken. And I want to talk to you a little bit about shopping. When you go to a supermarket, you can buy already shredded, cut up chicken for probably $2 to $3 a pound. Or you can go to the store and buy a whole chicken for about $1.50 a pound. Be smart about what you do. That whole chicken you can use in lots of different dishes. I'm going to show you how to break it down. All right, so I've got my chicken here. So I got my whole chicken. And for kitchen tools, I really need very few knives. A lot of people have these huge knife sets. I'm quite happy with a nice large French knife and a paring knife. To start off with, these are the only couple knives that you really need. In addition, I have a nice large cutting board. This one here has little rubber tabs on the bottom, which keeps it from sliding around, which is really important. When you use a knife and you're cutting, and it's cutting board sliding around on your table, you don't want that. That's the way to lose fingers. If you don't have a cutting board with little rubber tabs on it, a damp towel laid underneath the cutting board will keep it from sliding around really well. So I've got my chicken here, and we're going to open her up. There's a lot of juice, so I'm going to take my pan here and let it drain into this pan. When you buy a chicken at the store, whole chicken, often it comes with the giblets, which are either in the body cavity here or tucked in the neck spot here, but this one didn't have any. Those pieces are really nice to use. The liver is really good to saute up separately. The neck and the heart can be cooked up and add flavor to a broth. And also, I know my cat loves the liver. So I've just noticed that my rice is starting to boil, so I'm going to turn my rice down as low as I can get it. And I'm going to use my fancy lid, set it on top, and I'm going to forget about the rice for about 20 minutes. Back to my chicken. It's out here. My cutting board. There's a little bit of fat here. That can come right off. We don't need that. A little bit of fat and skin on the back. I'm going to trim that off. In the center of the chicken, on the top, you have the breast. You've got legs and wings. And this is the back. I'm going to cut the back out by taking my French knife and cutting either side of this backbone here. One good snap down. Snap down there. And that's going to come right out. Hold it along a little bit. There. This backbone can be saved. You can boil out for broth. There's a beautiful little nuggets of meat right in there. Make a wonderful chicken soup. Perfect to hold on to and use. Next, now that I've got my chicken open here, right in the center here on the breast is the breastbone. I'm just going to give it a little snap. I don't have to cut it. You can just break it right open. And that breastbone will pull right out. There's a little bit of cartilage up front. And there's the breastbone out. Now I'm going to take my paring knife and slide it underneath here, which is the rib cage, and just loosen up the rib cage a little bit. And I'm going to do that on both sides. The chicken. Right in the back here, the rib cage attaches. There's a little bit of cartilage. You can just cut right through that cartilage and take out the wishbone. That can go into your broth as well. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, every time a supermarket does this for you, the butcher has to get paid. So that's why processed pieces of meat, vegetables are more expensive, because have somebody doing this for you, which is incredibly easy. So now I've got my chicken a little loose and flopping around. I can take the leg and thigh right off here with just a simple cut. There's my leg. It can go in the freezer, or just like it is, and I can have a roast chicken leg, barbecue later. And we'll get its partner right along with it. There's the partner. Back here, we've got the wings. Party time. Here's the other wing. Now I'm left with a beautiful breast, a couple tenders right in here, and this can be used for many different sauté dishes. Today we're going to use this one for our chicken sauté, or at least part of it. One of the things about chicken, the leg meat, the muscle gets used a little bit more. So it's dark meat and has a little bit more flavor developed, unlike the breast. The breast is a little bit plainer and will take on a little bit more flavor. We want to do a little bit of both. So I'm going to take this thigh right off the leg. And again, right at the joint, there's a little bit of cartilage. And I can cut right through that. Now I've got my drumstick, I've got my thigh. I'm going to pull the skin off this thigh. We don't need that all of that in our saute. A little bit of fat is good, adds flavor. Too much, you're not going to like. Now this thigh has a little bit of bone in it. It's right underneath here. Can't really see it on the camera, I'm sure, but I can feel it. I'm going to run my knife right along that bone, a little bit underneath. And that'll come right off. And I'm kind of just peeling it off. This meat pulls right off of the muscle, off the bone, excuse me. And again, this little bits of bone can go in our broth for different later use. I'm gonna make sure I don't have any bone chips on here. So I've got a little piece of thigh. I'm gonna take just a little piece of this breast meat. And this is gonna be, our scallion saute is probably gonna be enough for two. So I'm feeling hungry. I'm gonna take half the breast. I'll pull the skin off. And now I've got my bone pieces of chicken. And I'm going to cut it into little strips. A bit of tender. And that fat is going to cook right off, and it's going to add beautiful flavor to our scallion chicken saute. There we go. That's our scallion, that's our chicken, ready, processed, and cut apart. I'm going to set this aside. One thing to remember about chicken is you want to have it completely cooked and all the way through, and you want to treat your cutting board so that nothing else touches this chicken juice that's on this cutting board, this knife, and the other knife. So I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to go wash my hands in a minute before I continue working. All right, so the magic of television here, I've changed out my cutting board, I've cleaned my knife, I've washed my hands, trying to stay very sanitary. I have my cut up chicken here in a pan. It's just any container for me that I had handy. It doesn't have to go in a saute pan. And we've now, I've checked my rice and it is done cooking. And an important thing to remember about rice, you do not want to stir it when it's in a pot. If you can see this, in the top there are little vent holes. And what happens as the water boils, those bubbles go straight up and they align the rice in an upward fashion to create these steam holes. If you stir the rice, you close those steam holes and the rice becomes sticky. So you want to make sure, do not stir your rice. We're going to set our rice aside here and we're going to get ready to do our scallion saute. I'm going to get my pan hot in just a second, and I want to talk about the sauce. This sauce is a very simple sauce. It doesn't call for very many ingredients. This dish was picked by the seniors, and I'm embarrassed to say this is one of the dishes where we actually use a pre-made sauce. So this is a pre-made stir-fry sauce that we doctor up a little bit. And for this amount, I'm going to use probably about 2 tablespoons of this sauce. There's 1, there's 2. Yeah, let's give it a little bit more. This kind of cooking is not exact. You go by taste, by smell, and what you see going on in the pan. Once you start getting to the baking part, that's an exact science. Follow Daisy's directions completely. So we've got our pre-made stir-fry sauce. You'll find that in the supermarket usually in the Asian foods aisle. Then, in addition to that, I'm going to take a little bit of oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is soy and oysters that have been processed. I believe sometimes they're even fermented. And we're going to be careful with this. This has a very salty flavor. I'm going to do 1 of these spoons. So that's, we're going to call it a tablespoon. In addition to that, sweeten things up a little bit. We're going to do, I'm going to say that's a good teaspoon of sugar and just a little dash of water. I'll thin it out a little bit because all of these sauces are very thick. I'm going to give it a quick stir, consistency. In addition, I'm going to take my tasting spoon. Yep, that's the flavor that I want. So we're all set with that. I'm going to light my fire. I'm going to let my pan get hot. I'm going to take a little bit of regular canola oil and put it in the bottom of the pan here, just to coat the bottom of the pan. And you want to get that nice and hot so nothing sticks. I also have some sesame oil here that you can cook with, but typically it's used more as a flavoring at the end of the meal. So, waiting for that to get nice and hot. I have a heat-resistant rubber spatula that I'm going to use. We'll take our chicken pieces, add them to the pan. You want to hear that sizzle. If you don't have a pan, you want to use a wok, that will work. If you don't have a wok or a pan, one of these saucepans will work. We're not particular about how to do it. And this is a stir fry. A stir fry is something that's cooked quick. One of the reasons for that was when, or at least a story that I heard, when stir frying was invented in Asia, one of the reasons was that there wasn't enough fuel available. So they had pans that they got very hot very quickly with a limited amount of fuel and cooked quickly so that they don't have to burn big logs of wood to roast a piece of meat for several hours. A stir fry is done in just a few minutes, so it saves on fuel. So this chicken is cooking up very quickly. You do want to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. And the way to tell, if you want all the pieces to be nice and white, if you see this pinkish translucent color, it's not cooked yet. So while our chicken is cooking here, I'm going to grab some scallions. My paring knife. These are regular scallions you can buy in the supermarket. Be careful, they've got these blue elastics on to keep together. And on a scallion, you have pretty much the whole thing is usable with the exception of these little fuzzy roots at the end. So all I do is I take my little paring knife and trim off those roots. That's the only thing that really isn't usable. I'm going to do that for a couple of these scallions. For this amount, maybe 3 will be good. We'll do a 4th one. I'm going to look at the outside, make sure that there aren't any wilting leaves. If there are, we'll take those off. Set our other scallion aside. And you can use the whole thing. I usually don't cut these too big, but it doesn't matter whether you cut them a little bit smaller like I am or doing larger pieces. I'll check my chicken. Still got a little piece that has some uncooked portions, but everything else seems to be coming along nicely. And you see little bits and pieces building up in the bottom of the pan. That's all flavor that's going to come loose when we add our sauce. And going to add to the intricacy of the dish. So our chicken is just about done here. And normally during the wait time, I'd ask for if anybody had any questions in the audience, but unfortunately, you're all at home and you're going to see this way after that I'm done. But my chicken is nice and cooked all the way through. You got all white pieces. They've tightened up a little bit. That's another way to tell that the chicken is done. If it's still all loose and jiggly like Jell-O, it's not done. And take my sauce that I mixed earlier. I'm going to scrape it right into this bowl, into this pan. That spring coming up. Just let that simmer for a minute. I'm going to add our scallions. Work those in. Here we have a nice plate. I'm going to take a little bit of our rice right on the plate. And along with that, we have a very nice Bates style chicken and scallion saute. Thank you very much. To all the seniors out there, you made it through an incredible, interesting senior year. And if you make it through this, you'll make it in your chosen careers. Good luck to everybody. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Daisy, who's going to show you how to make those desserts.
Hello, I'm Daisy Taylor. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make Toffee Bark. This is a popular one with the students, and we even have scraps sometimes that we put out, and you guys love it on your ice cream or in your yogurt as extra topping. So to start, I have a sheet pan here lined with parchment paper, and we're just going to give it a good spray of oil. You can also use tin foil if you don't have parchment paper. And we're just going to align our saltines. There's many variations of this if you wanted to use graham crackers or matzo crackers, Ritz crackers. I suppose you could use anything. And it doesn't matter which way the cracker goes, salt up or down. It's all going to taste the same. And typically this could fit into a 9x13 pan, so you could make it at home if you don't have quite as large of a sheet pan. And then next we're going to make our toffee on the stove. So I'm going to get the heat cranked up on this. And I have 1 stick of butter and 1/2 cup of sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and get the butter melted in there. And then we'll add our sugar. So this is us making the toffee part of it. And it's such a small batch, it's going to go quick. Once it starts to caramelize, it'll go from very blonde to very dark. And you don't want it too dark because the sugar will become bitter. So we're going to mix this up, get it going, and then we're going to pour it over our crackers. So we have the sugar and butter coming together, getting very bubbly, and you're just going to let it continue cooking until it starts to caramelize. Alright. So the mixture is slowly coming together, see it getting darker. You want to pull it off before it gets too dark because it will continue cooking. A little bit more color on that. Alright, so we're just on the verge here. You want to pull it off when it gets nice and dark. It's going to be very bubbly and hot, so just be careful you don't get it on you. And then we're going to go ahead and pour this over our saltines. Again, you can pour it over any cracker, gluten-free, graham cracker, anything you'd like. And then you just want to spread it out in a nice layer. And you could really pour this over anything you'd like. If you want to use it as a caramel on a cake, ice cream. If you want to omit the crackers completely and just have a toffee, that's fine as well. And then immediately while it's still hot, you want to get some chocolate chips. Here I have 2, but you're really just going to eyeball however many you'd like. And you're going to sprinkle it right on top. And the heat from that toffee that we just cooked is going to help warm the chocolate and melt it. If you wanted to use white chocolate here, or I have semi-sweet, you can do dark, any flavor of chocolate you'd like, go ahead and do that. And then we're just going to let it sit for a moment so the chocolate chips can heat up and melt. Now the chocolate is melted, and we're just going to use a spatula to spread it out into a thin layer. And then we're gonna sprinkle Heath Bar on top. If you didn't want to use Heath Bar, you could use coconut, M&Ms, drizzle some white chocolate. Any variation you'd like, you can do. And then we're gonna go ahead and take this and pop it in the fridge for about 5 minutes to let the chocolate harden up and the toffee will really set. Ta-da! Here I have a cooled off one. And you can take it off your sheet pan. I transferred mine to a cutting board and we're just gonna cut it up into chunks. Should break up pretty easily if you wanted to break it up by hand. You don't want any perfect cuts. And then again, you have lots of crumbs here. Like I said, those are perfect on ice cream or crumble into your yogurt, any sort of topping you'd like. And here you go, Toffee Bark. All right, next we're gonna be making Italian almond cookies. These are very popular with you guys. We make over 2,000 every 5 weeks. And this is just a basic cookie recipe. You could really alter it however you want. We, of course, add the almond extract, but you could omit that if you have a nut allergy. You could add chocolate chips. There's many variations I can show you as we go. So I'm gonna start out, I have 3 sticks of butter right into my mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer at your house, you can do this by hand. You can use a hand mixer. Anything will work. Make sure you get all the butter in there. And with the butter, we're going to add 1 cup of brown sugar. The brown sugar helps keep the cookie nice and moist because of the extra moisture in the sugar. And if you want to keep your brown sugar moist, like at home in a canister or in the bag, they make these clay. We have a bear. There's other animals, other shapes, anything. It's clay. You soak it in water, and then you can just put this into the container of brown sugar, and that will help keep it very moist and last a lot longer. Because if you leave the bag open in your cupboard, it definitely dries out and becomes solid rocks. I also have 1 cup of white sugar here. Add that to the bowl. Then we're going to get this mixing. Get the mixing cream together, the butter and the sugar. You really want to let it mix for a little while to get it nice and fluffy. It also helps if you leave your butter out for a little while to come to room temp. It helps break it down a lot easier, whereas if you're putting it in fresh out of the fridge, you have some solid lumps. It's a little bit harder on the mixer. You're also going to want to make sure you scrape the bowl and get everything incorporated. We don't want stuff stuck to the paddle not getting mixed in, as well as on the sides of the bowl. Let that keep going. Next, we're going to add eggs. Here I have 2 of them. We're going to want to add them 1 at a time and really let it incorporate before we add the next one. So turn the mixer down. You don't want to make a mess. One egg. Then I'll add the second egg. Let it mix. Now is also when you're going to add the extract. So here I have 2½ teaspoons of vanilla extract, as well as 2½ teaspoons of almond extract. Again, if you want to do maple, if you want to do just vanilla, anything is fine. Cookies are so versatile and you can add any ingredients that you want. So I'll stop that, and you really want to scrape the bowl here, especially getting on the bottom because all that sugar is going to be stuck down under the paddle. Let it mix for a second longer. I have 4 cups of all-purpose flour here. That's going to go in next, as well as 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Baking soda is going to help make the cookie chewy and not rise as much, opposed to baking powder would make it fluff up and be more cakey. Definitely turn your mixer off before you add the flour because it's going to make a big poof cloud if you don't. Salt, baking soda, mix that up. Start really slow because it could make a mess very fast. Once it starts to come together though, we can turn the mixer up and really incorporate all the ingredients. You want to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. So the flour on the sides here, we're going to go ahead and scrape that all down. Just give it a good final mix to incorporate. So I'm going to stop here, but now is when you could add chocolate chips, raisins, coconut, literally anything you'd like, Heath bar chunks, anything you'd like to add to your cookie. Go ahead and clean the paddle off. Here I have a sheet pan just lined with parchment paper. That helps it not stick. You don't need to use parchment paper by any means. You could just spray your sheet pan. And I have a number 40 scoop. You don't need a scoop. You could use a tablespoon and just daub clumps of dough onto the pan. You could roll it in your pans. So, want nice level scoops of the cookie dough. And these do spread out quite a bit, so just make sure you leave a good 2+ inches between it. That looks about good. And then we'll go ahead and get these in the oven for, I'd say, about 10 to 12 minutes at 350. When your cookies come out of the oven, we're gonna go ahead and let them cool, and then in the meantime we can make icing. So here I have some powdered sugar, and we're just gonna mix it with about a tablespoon of milk. I have whole milk. You could use skim milk, almond milk, soy milk. And you just wanna be do a tablespoon at a time because it will come together really quickly. Just give it a good stir to get all those powdered sugar lumps out of it. All right, and then once you get the right consistency, nice drizzle there. We're just gonna drizzle this over our cookies. There's no rhyme or reason. Anything looks great. And I think the more icing, the better. And then we're gonna go ahead and sprinkle almonds and sprinkles on top, rainbow sprinkles. You could do chocolate sprinkles. You could omit the sprinkles because they do contain coconut if you have an allergy. Just a few sliced almonds here. You want to make sure they stick to your icing. That's key, because if it's not on the icing, it's just going to fall off when you pick up the cookie. And a few sprinkles. Brighten them up a bit. And there you have the finished almond cookie. I just want to say congratulations, seniors. You did it. Good luck in the real world.